welcome to episode 7 of FilmStop. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, thank you for being here, and for those of you who have been with us for the past 6 episodes, welcome back. You can find us and follow us on Twitter at Suraj S. Prakash, that is Suraj Prakash, and on Instagram at Suraj1912. Also, join our Facebook community. So, today we're going to talk about Badla. We are going to do a quick review of the movie itself and then jump into a spoiler-filled discussion. So, if you haven't watched the movie, be warned when I do warn you that we are going to go into spoilers. Not at the beginning. For the first couple of minutes, I am just merely going to review the movie in a very spoiler-free fashion. Okay, so what is Badla about? So Badla is about Tapsee Pannu's character, who is a young entrepreneur who finds herself locked in a hotel room with a dead body, and basically being accused of murdering her dead lover. She then hires a lawyer, a very prestigious lawyer, to defend her, and the story is really about the two of them going back and forth on really figuring out what happened and how to portray it to the courts and the jury. So as this is happening, the story of the events are unraveling in flashbacks, and you get versions of the story being told by Tapsee Pannu and then questioned by Amitabh Bachchan's character, who's the lawyer, and that's really what makes up the movie. So, what did I think about the movie overall? I enjoyed it. I think it was a fun 2-hour watch. It's a crisp movie. It jumps straight into the whole murder, and it kind of jumps past all of the build up and exposition. It's almost as if the movie jumps into third act, or maybe close to mid of second act, and then straight into third act, which is fun. It's definitely entertaining for the 2 hours that I was watching it. I will say this, that it pales in comparison to other Sujoy Ghosh movies. I think that Kahani just packs so much more of a punch than this one. Nonetheless, it's worth a watch. Okay, so what did I think about Sujoy Ghosh's direction, since we're on the topic? I think that he does atmospherics really well. I think that even with this movie, the location plays a very important role in the movie itself, as do the characters in the story and the plot. You feel the gloom of Scotland. I think it's Scotland. But a lot of the credit for that should go to the lighting, the cinematography, and the production design. I think the three of those things work really well in establishing the gloom of the city, and how the gloom of the city sort of plays a role, a character in the story. You very rarely see sunlight, which is something to say about what's happening in the moment with Tapsee Pannu's character and to some extent Amitabh Bachchan's character, without jumping into spoilers. Now, what happens a lot of times with these kind of movies is that the editing can let you down, because the story, if you watch it in a linear fashion, is fairly easy to guess, and as you guess, you can kind of imagine what the ending is going to be like. With this one, I think the editing sort of does a good job. The editor does a good job, and I'm sure Sujoy Ghosh is a part of that, in breaking the monotony. So you're not for a second strongly believing in your own theories of where this movie is going. That said, the end, to some extent, is predictable, and that's kind of where I felt like the movie lacked that punch that I was talking about, the gut punch that something like Kahani had. Moving to the other aspects, dialogues, great dialogues that are clearly written to have a very punchy effect, but they don't feel jarring. There is one or two dialogues here and there which seems like, ugh, why? But I think that even though I know they were going for very sorry for lack of better phrase, but dialogue-y dialogues, I think that they still did a good job with sort of maintaining the balance. And finally, the acting. So I do believe that Tapsee Pannu is a good actress. I think that she often gets she limits her performance down to a couple of expressions often. In some movies, she shines more than others, like Man Mar Jaya, she was great. I think that in this, she feels a little limited. I feel like she could have played this a little better, and I think we're going to talk about that when we go into the spoiler-filled discussion. But um, I enjoyed her and Amitabh Bachchan's banter. I enjoyed that back and forth. There was comfort there, and I think that that makes sense because they've done Pink together, which is kind of the character Amitabh Bachchan is playing here too. He's a no shit, basically straight to the point. Knows what he wants and knows how to get it, sort of a lawyer. And I think that he's getting a little slotted, just a little bit. Finally, I think. Ooh, I forgot to mention Amrita Singh. Amrita Singh is brilliant. Why don't people cast her more often? What is wrong with you, Bollywood? She is so good, and she definitely is a strong, a very important character in the movie, and I did not know that going into it. So, highly, I mean, I loved her. I loved her in the movie, and I think when you watch it, you'll see why. So finally, the final rating that I would give this movie, I would watch this movie once, and I would recommend you to watch it too. You do not need to watch it in the theaters. You can watch it when it comes out on video on demand. If you don't have the time to, then don't go to the theaters to watch. I mean, we all know you're gonna go watch Captain Marvel, but this one, I don't know if you need to watch it in the theaters. So, with that, we come to the spoiler-filled discussion. Okay. Warning, people, if you haven't watched this movie, do not stick around for this part. Come back, watch it, and then come back to this part. So let's go over the ending, right? Actually, let's go over the cliff notes of the plot. So Nana, I think is her name. She is accused under house arrest. She hires, or her general counsel, Jimmy, gets her to hire this very prestigious lawyer, Badal Gupta. He comes in with urgency because there is a new witness who is going to be testifying pretty soon, within 3 hours. And so he is there to prepare her, come to a tight story for what's going to happen and how they're going to lay down this case from their end, and that's how the story starts. And as the story is moving forward, you can see Amitabh Bachchan's character orchestrating how and when he needs to get answers from Naina, who's Tapsee Pannu. And Tapsee starts with a version of the story that she has been adhering to, and then she opens up one or two twists here and there where she goes a little further back and she says, I was in an accident where I didn't realize this deer was on the road, and I drove into another car, and turns out the guy died. And Arjun, the other guy, he basically or the guy who dies, was the guy who asked her to go through with disposing of the body and spinning this yarn or web of lies, which ultimately gets her into this position, and the blackmail and everything. And that's where Amitabh Bachchan's character comes out, because you realize that he is 10 steps ahead. He knows what the truth is, and he's just trying to get her to say it. Well, why is he trying to get her to say the truth? Is because he, in fact, is the father of the guy who dies in the accident, and you find that out at the very end. So what happens is that Nana actually tells the truth finally. By the end of it, she says that whatever she had been spinning up to that point was actually quite the opposite of what actually happened. She was the one who came up with the plan of disposing the body. She was the one who was the shrewd one. She quote unquote evil one. She didn't care about anything else but saving her own ass and her power and prestige and life that she has built and career that she has built for herself. All the lie about her love for her husband and her child and all of that was BS, and he gets her to say that she killed Arjun, and that's great. I think that the end of it where he goes and walks into Amrita Singh's house and takes off his mask is a good reveal. But this is where my biggest, I guess, critique comes into play. I don't know, because I think that different people are going to have different experiences with this. I personally saw that coming, and the way I saw it coming was there was a couple of things that were happening. So at the very beginning, Amitabh Bachchan's character comes in 3 hours early or whatever X amount of, not, you don't know it's 3 hours, but he says he's early. Okay, he's early, that's fine. But right at that moment where she doesn't recognize him, when she opens the door for the first time, and this is the first or the second scene or whatever, and he says he's early, I got a sense that the fact that she doesn't know how he looks is going to come in play, or she has a very vague sort of understanding of who he is, will come into play. The other aspect of this was that he came in 3 hours early. What the? Apart from that, there was a moment when she is narrating the first time she's narrating the story of how the guy dies in the accident. Sonny dies, where she tells all of this. She never mentions his name, yet he says, "Oh, and Sonny was in the car." Like, he says his name. So that's a nugget right there. When I heard that, I was like, I'm fairly confident she hasn't mentioned his name before. So this is coming out from some background knowledge that Amitabh Bachchan has. Okay. I overlooked it then. But then later on, when in the story, Rani's character, which is Amrita Singh's character, she says, what does she say? मैं तुम्हें अर्जुन बुला सकती हूँ, तुम मेरे बेटे के एज के हो, उम्र के हो, या नहीं, she says मैं तुम्हें नैना बुला सकती हूँ, तुम मेरी बेटी के एज के हो. When she says that, something clicked, because that's what Amitabh Bachchan had said to her at the very beginning when they had just met and he just walked into the house. And things like those were hinting to me that there was some connection between Amrita Singh and Amitabh Bachchan. Now, I was actually thinking he's going to be her brother or some relationship between the two, and I didn't think that it was the father who had the get up on. That said, I did think that it could have been the father, in the sense that you're only seeing a version of the father that what's her name? Tapsee Pannu is creating in front of you. So maybe he is the father. I never thought of him having the mask on, which brings me to another criticism I am usually not a fan of this whole mask business. Like, whenever they do this, even in the Mission Impossible movies, as commercially sort of for the masses it is, I can't stand it. And with this one too, that sticks out to me. I hate it when people do that. That's probably the sole reason why I completely hated Rab Ne Bana Di Jodi, even though there was no mask in there. But the same concept that, one slight change and you don't know who I am, or you don't recognize me. I don't buy that. Like, I don't buy that that much of a transformation can be made and you don't see the face. Like, Tapsee Pannu has been seeing Amrita Singh and the father in news, maybe not as much the father, but in pictures and this and that. She knows how he looks, so it cannot be that much of a difference when you put your makeup on. Like, you're sitting face to face with this guy for 3 hours. You telling me you can't see that? I can't buy that. The other part is, I wish they had explored Tapsee Pannu's deviance a little bit more. I wish they had gone in a little deeper into why she's a little more evil. Not that I want it to be expositional, I just want, maybe it was in the way she portrayed the character, but I wish that there was more layers to her character than what they had, which is, you see the businesswoman of the year, and she loves her child and her husband, and whatever, she smokes, and she has, when she's nervous, and she's cunning, she's the one who hired the lawyer at the very beginning. Like, all of that stuff is fine. I just felt like there should have been more layers to her character, because I want to believe deeply that yes, she is a woman who would do this, and she seems at the end, when all the sort of pieces fall into place, I do want to believe that yes, this is all sort of schemed by her. I didn't feel that. The other part of this was that like, is it so difficult if Amrita Singh's character was to find her son's killer, and she had the phone and the text messages had been exchanged before Arjun had, shown up at the house and shown up with the phone, was it so difficult to find out who that person was? So that's a chink in her story, and I know it's not the truth because that part never happened realistically, but in her narration, someone else should have found that loophole. In Tapsee Pannu's narration, someone else should have found that loophole. It's almost as if, with all this media attention and scrutiny to the story, no one saw that. I don't buy that. And at the end, movies like these, if you watch Basic Instinct, or you watch Kasoor, or I haven't seen The Invisible Guest, which this is a official remake of, but I think in movies like these, it's become pretty common to sort of predict that the accuser who is playing, oh, the damsel in distress, I don't know what happened to me, like, I didn't do this, blah, 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 I'm just being wrongfully accused. It's become pretty predictable to be like, oh, well, wait a minute, she or he is the one who actually did it, even though they've been the damsel in distress and they've been wrongfully accused the whole movie. I feel like we need to sort of go a little further than that now with suspense movies. Overall, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, I think that the movie is a good one-time watch. The plot has some holes in it that maybe someone needs to talk to me about and get me out of. But I enjoyed it, and I think the movie will do well at the box office. I mean, well enough because it seems like a low budget flick. I think they will do well to make back the money. I think it's interesting that Shah Rukh produced it. Sorry, but I think that overall it's not one for the shelves. I don't think that it's gonna be talked about for too long. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Sujoy does next. He is a talented filmmaker, especially when it comes to suspense and mystery and atmospherics. He did mess up with Aladdin, but I everyone is forgiven one mistake. Anyways, longer than I thought it would be. I apologize if I've gone on multiple rants, but hopefully this gives you some food for thought. If you have any comments, thoughts, questions, or just want to have a discussion, ping me on Instagram or Twitter at Suraj S. Prakash, or Facebook. Our Facebook community is FilmStop Podcast. As always, it's a pleasure being here and talking to you, and I will be back with the next episode pretty soon. Have a good one. Bye.